All right, guys, this is Tony. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Tuesday evening. I was just having a conversation the other day with somebody who is considering doing the February group, and I had given her a fizz stick to try because I know that was something when I tried, I'm not used to drinking anything really other than water and green tea, my detox tea, that sort of thing, because I don't drink pop or anything like that, even though I used to. I've just weaned myself off of it over the years. But I was talking to her because when I use my fizz sticks, it'll last me several 20-ounce bottles throughout the day because it's strong to me. And so when I met with her and she had tried it already, and I said, "Oh, did you put the whole thing in there?" She goes, "Yeah, I really liked it." And I could tell right away she probably drank something a little stronger. And I asked her, I said, do you drink pop? And she goes, "Oh, yeah." She goes, "I wish I didn't." But I knew right then that her taste buds had probably been hijacked. And so this is perfect going into tonight because we're going to talk about reclaiming your taste buds. And given where we are in the 30-day plan, I thought this would be the perfect time to talk about this. As many of you know, by now, those highly processed, flavored foods have, like I said, hijacked our sense of taste. And this is one of the things that really drives unhealthy cravings and destroys our health over time. And so what we're talking about tonight is reclaiming our palates and reclaiming those taste buds. So a lot of people, from the time they're kids, they learn to love things like pizza and hot dogs and the McDonald's drive-thru, all things, that's how our lifestyles, they're fast-paced, that's how they are. And the more, the more they pop up, the more convenient it is, the more we use them. And all these things are, these processed, generally not so healthy choices. But green leafy vegetables and Brussels sprouts and salmon and quinoa, not so much, right? They don't like those so much because we're used to the other foods. So for many people who consume these processed foods, healthy foods, like I just mentioned, they just don't taste that good. And people crave things like potato chips and French fries and breads and pastas and soda, even though a lot of them know better and know these things really aren't that good for them. So what we find, though, is when people go without these foods for a certain amount of time, so for example, even a 10-day detox, but especially something like this 30-day plan, by eliminating all the processed foods and all the, fake sugar items like soda, even diet, and sweets, and really change those processed things out for real food, like vegetables, lean meats, seafoods, fruits, healthy fats, something really incredible happens. You start noticing the flavors of these real whole foods. You start noticing texture. You enjoy the simple things like a mixed green salad with just a basic, tasty, homemade vinaigrette. The store-bought dressings, if you're my 11-year-old said one time he was eating, somewhere at a friend's or out, and he said, "Mom, the salad dressing just tastes chemically." That was his word, full of chemicals, chemically. And so you start noticing, how sweet blueberries are and raspberries, whereas before they weren't so tasty and may even be a little bit bitter or sour sometimes. But at the end of a plan, or if you're doing a detox or whatever, you start to notice all of those tastes really coming out. When this transition happens and then you do have a sip of soda or a bite of something, really sweet from the store or the gas station, it just tastes fake. It tastes wrong, like really overly sweet, or in my 11-year-old's case, chemically. So this is us and what we're doing. We're reclaiming our palates this month, and it's never too late to get your taste buds back on track. And in fact, that's why I do this 30-day every month, because some people need that help. It's not just a one-and-done type thing. Life happens. We fall off the wagon, so to speak, or slowly that sugary, I always say that it's a slippery slope back to sugar, because it's addictive, like we talked about in our sugar and wheat calls. So, people need to come back to this every so often and do another 30-day plan and kind of reclaim, our health and our life again. So no amount of processed food will permanently alter your taste buds. That's the good thing. Once you do get your palate back, each time you learn a little bit more and you continue to guide more and more toward those healthier and tastier choices. So a little little bit of information. You have about 10,000 taste buds, and they recognize flavor, of course, like sweet and salty and sour and bitter or savory. It sets off something inside of you, this biochemical reaction that translates that information that you take in into a message that travels. It's an electrical message that travels through your cranial nerves to your brain, getting your body ready to eat and ready to absorb those nutrients. And based on the messages it receives, your brain then triggers digestion. So even just a tiny taste of what you're preparing for dinner, for example, before you sit down to actually eat dinner, your brain is already starting to release insulin and telling your GI system to secrete that hydrochloric acid and those digestive enzymes that you need to process the food that you're about to take in. I think that's amazing. All this is just simply by almost suggestion, a smell while you're cooking, a tiny taste. And so our natural, survival instincts, if you will, make us crave foods that are salty because our bodies require sodium to support, nerve and muscle operation and things like that. So we're hardwired to seek out calories for energy and fats, which also help. Remember, our brain is the biggest chunk of fat in our body. It helps support that brain functioning. So it's interesting that all these processed foods are packed with sodium and sugar and bad fats. You almost, think they might want us to be addicted to this food. So what has served us really, really well for thousands of years is sabotaging us in a lot of ways in this modern world that we live in. Those biological things that are supposed to steer us toward healthy choices have really been thrown way off course by all the synthetically flavored processed foods that that are everywhere now. You can't get away from them. So the flavor we used to get in our food from plants and animals, we get from factories essentially. But here's the problem. Trying to satisfy those cravings, those inherent cravings for sugar and fats and sodium with that hyper-flavored, convenience food, it really obviously fails to meet our nutrition needs, but it actually ends up making us crave even more and more and more. We talked about that on the sugar call. And that's because, those real amped up flavors appeals to us more than eating the same old, foods every day. There's an actual term that food manufacturers use called sensory-specific satiety, and it refers to that declining satisfaction you get from taking in a certain type of food and the consequent renewal in appetite resulting from the exposure to a new food or flavor. And the best example of this is actually just the buffet. When you go to the buffet, people are more likely to eat a larger amount of food at a buffet because of the variety of foods and the flavors. It renews that sense of appetite. There was a study that I was reading. The study said that 44% increase in overall food consumption when exposed to the meals with a variety of foods. So sugar and bad fats that are put into food now actually activate the reward center in our brain. And we talked about that at the sugar call. But guess what? Food manufacturers know this, like we just talked about. They actually hire people to talk about and figure out consistency and texture and flavor and all that stuff. They're constantly using all of these real complex flavors and textures and to specifically design them to make you addicted, essentially. And our cravings for these fake flavors then become really part of that vicious cycle. I call it a vortex. You eat too many bad carbs and sugars, for example, and that can spike your blood sugar, right? So you get that rush or that high, and then a huge drop afterwards, leaving you really tired and sluggish and really hungry, craving, guess what? More sugar. So then that cycle continues. But the good news is that you can reprogram your palate, which is exactly what we are doing. So a few suggestions to help with this: cleanse your palate. Whether you gradually ease off of things or you eliminate them like we've done in this plan altogether, your sense of taste will eventually become, more attuned to those subtle flavors in real whole food. And one way to kind of jumpstart this cleansing is to serve yourself the good stuff first. Eat your vegetables before digging into all the other stuff on your plate. That's what I always tell my boys. I always say, what's the number one most important thing on your plate? And they know to point to those veggies. All right, slow down. People are used to eating foods that are so highly processed. Think about that. Again, while we're cooking, if our brains are already kind of getting that digestion ready when we're cooking and smelling those flavors, and, here a lot of people don't cook anymore. We just go through a drive-through. We're not even really ready to digest that, nor is it something even familiar. It's not what our grandparents knew 50, 60 years ago. It's completely unfamiliar for our bodies in general, but we're so used to eating these processed foods that we don't take much effort or time at it either. So research shows that we chew food, believe it or not, much less than we used to. People are, comfortable with foods that are chewed only like 10 or 15 times now versus, the upwards of 25 times in the 1960s and 70s. We talked about that on our Getting Started call about how much fiber our ancestors took in, and, that's a lot of that chewing and those vegetables and things like that. So I'm not really sure how that research was done, but it does make you wonder, how much of that has to do with our fast-paced lifestyle, and of course, just the soft, more processed foods versus those raw, whole, natural foods that obviously, like I said, take more time chewing. So to bring out the full flavor of what you're eating, you want to chew very slowly and mindfully. This will also help with that digestion and really get the most nutrition out of your food. Try something new. If you're trying to introduce your taste buds to taste other than salty and sweet, broaden your horizons with food from one of the other taste categories at each meal. So sour, like citrus or sauerkraut; bitter, like turmeric or dark chocolate, or maybe the rich, meaty taste in mushrooms or tomatoes or red meat. So processed food numbs your taste bud. And remember, fat carries taste. And that was all taken away, when the sugar was infused in the 80s, when they decided fat was horrible. They took it all out, and it tasted like crap. Because, again, that fat carried the taste. And then when it tasted like crap, what they do, they dumped all the sugar in, and then everybody was addicted. So also make a positive connection. Gathering with, new neighbors or enjoying dinner with friends or your family is really a wonderful thing. It turns out that recalling happy times associated with tasting nutritious food can help you acquire a new taste. So we learn to like foods through positive association. And food should be social in a healthy way. Get your brain on board. So look forward to eating a food that you love. Allow yourself to build up that anticipation, especially if you're about to eat a food that you really, really enjoy. One of the things I always tell people is, when you're meal planning, or write all the things down that you love to eat, and then circle what you think is healthier, and then go from there. And I always tell everybody, you can learn, I can make an extra long cheese coney from Sonic healthy. Really, truly, you can learn to make your favorite foods in a healthy version that will nourish your body and taste really, really good. Try again and again, or try and try again. Research has shown that repeated exposure can increase how much you like a particular food. So you've heard that a baby takes 12 times or 15 times, whatever it is, to taste something before they like it. Well, guess what? That goes for big people too. So think about how hard that is if you have for years, even if you were raised maybe on vegetables and then transitioned over to kind of that fast-paced drive-through lifestyle. You've got to start over. It's harder for adults because we're in control of the money. We're in control of the groceries. You got to go out of your way and at least take little bites of things that you don't like over and over in order to get used to it. One of the gals doing the program said just that. She gave me an example, and she said, I heard what you said about trying different things, and she said, I made this great meal, and I thought, what else can I put in it? And during the disease delusion, I mentioned white button mushrooms and how they decrease, risk of breast cancer and all this stuff. And so she said, I don't like mushrooms. I hate them. She goes, but I thought, I'll just throw them in and see. And she said that she was so mad because it was all the meal was prepared, and by the time she even got to try them, her family knows she hates mushrooms, and so they ate all but like 5. And when she tried them, she's like, they were amazing the way they were cooked. And so, try things different. If you don't like a preparation one way, I would say if you don't like, pickled beets, try them roasted and throw them on a salad or whatever. Let's see. All right, so there. has obviously been a war on our taste buds for a long time now, and we're up against a lot, but gone are the days that, the local grocery stores, we walk in and everything is junk. When you look at those middle aisles, that's why we always say stay on the outside. Those no more do we, see local farm fresh goods. In the 60s or so is when that whole shift started to occur to more large-scale corporate farming, nationwide grocery distribution. And that authentic taste that I'm talking about was really the first to go. We, now have foods that are really super bred for massive production. They have to travel cross-country to get where they're going. They have to have shelf stability. That means processed foods. They have to have bad oils and chemicals and fillers and artificial colors and flavors in order to stay on the shelf longer. The meat is full of hormones for mass production. They grow, they want them to grow bigger and faster and produce more milk. And the veggies are sprayed with every chemical, to keep bugs away. And now, thanks to genetic modification, they're actually even being grown with pesticides in them. And if you'll recall, those phytonutrients that have evolved over millions of years in the plants, in the color of the different plants, the oranges, the greens, the yellows, the purples, those plants have evolved to create these things that really protect them over the years. And in turn, they protect us as well. And what happens when these plants that are GMO, that are grown with pesticides, they're coddled. They don't have to, produce phytochemicals or phytonutrients. They're coddled, and so they have less phytonutrients. Remember, plants can't run from the sun. They can't, duck from bugs. They have to be strong. But when they're coddled like this, they don't have to be, and therefore they have less phytonutrients, and therefore they don't protect you as well, aside from all the other potential things. There was a study in 2004 in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition that's showing that modern tomatoes have half as much nutrients as they did in the 1950s, right? And never mind the condition, of course, of the soil they're being grown in. But I always give that example of, when I was little, I'd get in trouble in the garden because my mom would grow tomatoes, and I thought it was so fun to go out and throw the tomatoes against the fence. We had like a 6-foot fence around our backyard, and they would burst, and she'd be so mad. And my boys, I tell them that story, and we walk in a grocery store, and, they're 3 boys, and so they're bumping into everything. The tomatoes, fall off, and they thud on the floor. They don't even dent, and I'm like, oh, pick those up and put them back. They don't dent. They're hard as bricks. They are not the same tomatoes I had as a kid even. So, another example is, our parents, for example, enjoyed those tomatoes they grew in the garden. But thanks to all these technical advances with food, we and our children, we enjoy, on the other hand, that zesty, synthetic, counterpart in a bag of ketchup-flavored, potato chips found in one of the middle aisles. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about our taste buds have been hijacked. It's just not the same food. We're increasingly choosing fake food over real food. I see this every day when I meet with people about their nutrition. As a nation, we now consume more than 600 million pounds of synthetic flavorings a year. That's about 2 pounds per person. And as far as even the flavor, the synthetic colors, I notice a difference in my particularly my middle son. When he has those, his behavior changes. So you start noticing those things when you take it away. So your taste buds have been on this, basically this roller coaster of fake tastes, and it can be really hard to, opt instead for, the tomato or the bowl of berries or that green salad, but really that's the first step to getting your health on track. So just hang in there. You guys are doing amazing. I've heard some just incredible stories, and I'm so proud of all of you. So keep it up, and that's all I have for tonight. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I'm getting ready. Next week is our detox talk, and then we're going to start that detox following that for the week. And then I believe we'll have our follow-up call that next, or the wrap-up call that next week. So again, I'll be starting February's group. Is it next week already? So if you guys have anybody that would benefit, just let me know. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.